There is always something mesmerizing about vintage photographs. Each picture has its own story, its own value. This is a far cry from the millions of selfies that are taken every second around the world. I bring to your attention a new part of historical shots, which characterize not only the object captured on it, but the whole era. Enjoy your viewing. Testing a helmet, 1912. A man selling mummies in Egypt, 1865. This Victorian fashionista's hair is adorned with a stuffed cat in the bodice of her dress with real cattails, 1883. A former inmate of the Auschwitz concentration camp picks up his eyeglasses among a large pile of glasses taken from prisoners, 1945. This emotionally powerful shot was taken in China. With such a cumbersome structure around his neck, the prisoner could not eat or drink on his own. This method is described as a short-term punishment that also provided an opportunity to expose the criminal to public scrutiny and censure. On April 28, 1988, the roof was blown off an Aloha Airlines plane at an altitude of 7,300 meters, but the plane was able to land safely. There were no casualties. A 106-year-old Armenian woman guards a house with a Kalashnikov rifle from Azerbaijanis during the Karabakh conflict, 1990. Philippine natives in an enclosure at the New York Zoo, 1905. Philippine guerrilla captain Nieves Fernandez shows an American soldier how she killed Japanese invaders, 1944. Last photo of a Papua New Guinea explorer. This photo shows Michael Rockefeller, who was the son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller. In principle, Michael had everything, but his soul demanded adventure, and the young man in the early 1960s went on an expedition to Papua New Guinea. The locals were not very friendly. Representatives of the Papuan people Asmat are known cannibals, so after a fun ritual of sacrifice they beheaded and ate the unfortunate Michael. A Ku Klux Klan member rides in a car with a rope outside the window. This is a warning to African American neighborhood residents in Miami to vote in the election. May 1939. Pictured is a 416-pound black rock base caught on a Mrs. Barrett reel rod and reel, 1901. Woman with slave girl, New Orleans, USA, 1850. Unsuccessful kamikaze attack against the side of the British heavy cruiser HMS Sussex, July 26, 1945. The print belongs to a Japanese Army Mitsubishi Ki-51 reconnaissance attack aircraft, codenamed Sonia. The payload hit the water before the aircraft collided with the ship's hull. In November 1954, American Anne Elizabeth Hodges was injured by a fragment of the Silakuga meteorite. This incident was the first documented injury to a human being by an extraterrestrial object. A herd of elephants before mass extermination really meant herd. A 1976 photo taken in Tsavo Province, Kenya. A prison in Panama is a net over a chasm. 1920. A man atop the Golden Gate Bridge during its construction in the 1930s. Building the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco required great courage. In the 1930s, there was an unspoken rule about steel bridge projects. Engineers had to anticipate one death among employees for every $1 million spent. The $35 million Golden Gate Bridge had a brilliant safety record. With only 11 deaths during construction, it was reported that at least 19 people were saved thanks to a massive net hanging beneath the construction site. The survival of bridge employees is a miracle of foresight. Excavations at the site of a mass grave of victims of Stalinist repression, Russia, 1989. In 1920, the concept of healthy habits was a little different. Here athletes calmly share cigarettes during the Tour de France cycling race. Cigarettes bought from a hospital bed in the 1950s. Before tobacco use was linked to lung cancer and heart disease, the medical community didn't consider smoking a health hazard. In fact, smoking was thought to calm an anxious person, suppress appetites, and generally be beneficial. As absurd as it may seem, hospital patients in those days could buy packs of cigarettes from their hospital beds. And if they wanted to, they could even smoke in their hospital rooms. Testing a new fireproof building material, New Haven, 1949. A nurse's costume from an X-ray room during World War I, France, 1918. Testing of body armor, 1923. French wrestler Maurice Thu in American supermodel Dorian Lee, 1945. He became the prototype for Shrek. Wall inside the gas chamber, Auschwitz. The hobo chair, USA, 1900s. This is a device for total isolation of one person, used by American police as a mild form of torture and public humiliation. This photo shows a woman who has advertised for her 4 children. It's not clear if she's crying or covering her face. She wanted to sell the kids and start a new life with her new boyfriend. Apparently, children had no place in that life. Perhaps someone will say that it is better to live with someone else's family than with such a horrible mother. However, the tragic part of the story is that the babies fell into even worse hands. The children were acquired by local farmers who used them as slaves. The ruins of Dresden after World War II. Punishment in Mongolia, 1913. In the photo you can see a common punishment for criminals, who were put in a small box that they didn't even fit in and put on public display, while starving them to death. In 1939, this marvelous family bicycle was created. It's not even a tandem, it's a super tandem. Contest for the most beautiful women's legs on a beach in Istanbul, Turkey, 1971. Family photo on the moon, 1972. At the time of the landing, Charles Duke was the youngest astronaut to set foot on the surface of the moon. In addition, Duke became famous for the photo of his family left on the moon. Prosthetics items used to disguise facial injuries. Cleaning the Venetian canals, 1956. Human-powered tractor for moving heavy stones. England, approximately 1880. Boxing match aboard the battleship USS Oregon, 1897. Girls washing out a giant replica of the Studebaker automobile, Chicago, 1934. It could be called the largest automobile in the world. A logging crew next to a giant sequoia. There were larger trees in California a century ago, although the sequoia photographed next to the people is truly a giant. A worker assembler against the background of a mass-size model of the first Soviet atomic bomb, USSR, 1949. Celebrating the end of Prohibition, USA, 1933. Lip plates are a traditional ornament of Mersey women. The start of a balloon race. Berlin, 1908. The world's smallest car, Peel P500, presented at the International Exhibition in London, 1962. Protest against the construction of Narita Airport, Tokyo, Japan, March 26, 1978. Buying a family shelter in case of nuclear war, 1961. A pilot restarts a stalled engine during a flight, 1960s. Santa Claus as we know him is the work of Coke's marketing department. It took the company 80 years to firmly link the image of a well-fed old man dressed in red to the major winter holiday season. Soldiers of the 5th Finnish Field Artillery Regiment demonstrate an experimental method of walking on water. A French pilot makes an emergency landing and leaves the airplane, Belgium, 1915. A Soviet frontier guard feeding bears with condensed milk at a Far East outpost, 1975. A child on ice skates with an airbag, Netherlands, 1933. After the liberation of Kiev during World War II, residents retrieved furniture hidden in the ground, 1943. Finnish construction workers from New York drinking beer together in a cafe near Camp Blanding, Florida, USA, 1940. Due to heavy rain, they were unable to work. Destroyed Beirut, Lebanon, 1976. Downtown Boston, 1910. Good, Bad, Evil Spain, 1966. Amazing photos, aren't they? Sometimes you can't believe these photos are actually real. I have to say goodbye to you for today, but not for long. Soon there will be a continuation of this column. I have something to show you, it will be interesting. Thank you for watching.